thank you for joining me. Thank you for getting here early, those of you who did. Hello, Hawkmoon. I see your message there. You got there early waiting. Thank you. I appreciate that. I hope you're all well, as you guys will probably know. And as always, it feels a little bit redundant me saying it, but it's just been an incredibly busy few days for me. And, you know, as a result, Oh, Jenny Nichols. Hi, Carl. I'm hotspotting from my son's phone because the neighbour's gardener cut through our phone line. Also isolating because my son has COVID for watching the football on Sunday. Wow. That's. I hope you're all okay out there. I hope you're all set up, Jenny, so that you can self-isolate in relative comfort. I know it's a uncomfortable position to be in for any of you that are self-isolating. I don't know, any of you others out there in the UK, we're facing a really steep spike in cases at the moment, which is, it boggles my mind. I can't get my head around it because of the number of vaccinations we've had. We're really, you know, one of the countries at the top of the list for number of vaccinations. I think we're over 50% of adults have had 2 vaccinations now. It just boggles my mind that we're still seeing these numbers creep up. But having said that, you know, that the link between the numbers of people who contract COVID and, you know, obviously pass it on, and the number of people who end up dying from it or have really severe conditions has been, you know, broken to some degree. Obviously, there's still a link there, but it's nothing like it was. So at least there's that, and that's largely due to the vaccinations, I think. So. Anyway, good luck with your self-isolation, Jenny. I hope you cope all right. At least you've got some. Have you got a decent garden you can get out in? I hope you do. I think you do, because we've got some beautiful weather here in the UK. It's around 30 degrees Celsius at the moment, which for us is really, really warm. It's fantastic. I can't wait to get out there. I would be doing this live stream from the garden, but I'm home alone and I use my wife's device to see your message. If you see me looking down here, it's because I'm reading your messages, and I use my wife's device to do that on, and she's obviously gone out. She's gone to see her parents, my in-laws, with the kids, and she's taken her phone with her, obviously, and her iPad that I'm using at the moment only uses Wi-Fi, so I can't go out and use the 4G signal today. Hi, Shannon. I hope you're doing all right, mate. Glad you could make it. So I'm in the middle of filming at the moment. I'm in the middle of filming an updated sourdough recipe. The recipe hasn't changed, but some of my techniques and some of the stuff I use has changed a little bit. There's no expensive equipment or anything like that I've bought, but I just use a few things and makes the process a little bit simpler. And that was as requested from one of you guys who wanted a sort of updated version on the sourdough recipe. So I'm filming that today. I've already done the first section, done all the kneading and what have you, and that's now set to prove. Jenny says, thank you, got lots to do at home, dehydrating, making fruit leathers, reading and sewing. Fantastic, lots of great homesteading jobs there for you. And I think, so it's going to sound a little bit selfish, maybe. I don't know how it's going to come across, but my wife and I, we absolutely, and not selfish, what's the word? Ignorant, maybe, or perhaps unempathetic. Is that a word? But we really loved the lockdowns. When we had the lockdowns, they were just great for us because it gave us an excuse to be at home more. And we were able to just do so much more in the gardens and what have you. And you don't feel that pressure to go out and see people and do things and all those things that take up your time. Obviously there was downsides, and obviously for most people the downsides were massive, and I'm not unsympathetic to that. But for us personally, we really enjoyed them, and it was, you know, looking back, it was a huge benefit. We got a hell of a lot done. It seems crazy that it was over a year ago now, the first lockdown, doesn't it? So those of you who follow me regularly will know that on Wednesday the podcast never got released. There wasn't one on Wednesday. I've just been so busy. But I have released, or scheduled to be released at some point today, a bonus podcast, which features you, Shannon, actually. Shannon says I wasn't the only one who felt like that. Well, it's nice to know I wasn't the only one. like I say, I feel a little bit guilty saying it because I know how much of a detriment it was to so many people, and the financial impact and the mental health impact for so many people was negative. And I'm not belittling that at all, and I'm not in any way saying that I was glad it happened or I'd want it again. I'm just saying that the experience of it for us personally was really positive. So yeah, I hope you can make the most of your sort of personal lockdown you've got there, Jenny. So yeah, I've released a bonus episode of the podcast to make up for Wednesdays, and I scheduled it for release today. So I'm not sure what time. It's either out already or it'll be out very, very soon. It features you, Shannon, a couple of listener questions. So yeah, everyone has to hear your voice again. Quite right. I've also recorded Monday's podcast already, and that is my Monday series has been on individual sections of foods looking to September for my September challenge. And Mondays is all about beverages, and it kind of drew my attention. I'm so glad that I'm doing these podcasts because they really help to laser focus my attention on different aspects of things that sometimes I just don't think about. And I think drinks so last weekend on the live feed, I think it was Guido who said, do you feel like you're ready, or, are you nervous about September? And I think I said, no, I feel as ready as I'm going to be. And I'm sure there's some things that are going to come at me sideways and I wasn't expecting. But recording the podcast on Monday, it made me kind of think that I think maybe just drinks is going to be the thing that hits me the hardest and the thing that I struggle with, because it's just not something I think about. Now, obviously, we are self-sufficient with some of our drinks to a degree. We make our own kombucha, but we use shop-bought tea bags for that. We use sugar for that. Now, obviously, the sugar thing is fine. I can substitute honey in for sugar. But I've read online for kombucha making, if you do use honey, if you use honey for several batches in a row, it can have a detrimental effect on the SCOBY, the bacteria and that living thing that we're using to ferment our tea. So that doesn't concern me for September, because I'm sure 1 or 2 batches will be all I'm going to need to get me through September. But there's lots of things that I hadn't really considered. And during the day when I'm out in the car, I tend to drink a carbonated soda, a can of something, and I think I'm really going to miss that, and I hadn't really crossed my mind. So I'm asking you guys for what are your self-sufficient drinks? What drinks are you making that you're kind of producing all yourself? There's obviously a few we're going to be able to do here. Hopefully, assuming the fruit comes good in time, we'll be able to make pear juice and apple juice and things like that, which is amazing. But just for really simple stuff to take around with you, I think I'm going to honestly feel a bit of a side swipe there, because I'm just not used to it. I'm used to just reaching for that can. And Shannon writes water, and yes, absolutely, 100%. Now, water is obviously a go-to drink, and it's one that's always going to be there, but it's one I never, ever, 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 ever drink. It's crazy. I don't enjoy it. And I will be drinking a lot of it in September, but I think it's really going to irk me. I really do. So I think of all the things throughout September that I'm kind of substituting, changing, thinking about, I think it's drinks that's going to be the one that kind of flummox me a little bit. And we've discussed several times, haven't we, about coffee and things like that. I think I'm okay with that now. It's the one I was dreading, but I think I'm okay with it. I'm pretty much off the caffeine. I'm still drinking coffee. I'm drinking decaf coffee, plenty of it. But I think I'm going to go to, sort of, someone's mentioned... Jenny Nichols said dried flowers and herbs for tea, and herbal teas are great. They're not something I particularly enjoy a lot of, but I think I'll just get in the habit of drinking them. I use a lot of foraged stuff to make teas with, and one I do really enjoy is turkey tail tea. I've got some dried turkey tail mushrooms still from last year, not too many though, but hopefully turkey tail season is going to be up and about fairly soon, and I'll be able to save a load more up. Ready, I've got a few messages here. So Hawkmoon says homebrewed beer. Haha, you could make low alcohol summer fruit drinks, and with pears too. I don't drink, Hawkmoon. I don't drink alcohol. And if I did, then I think that would have been something that, again, suffered only because I don't think I'll have the time to have any cider and pear ciders and things made in time for September. But it is something I'm going to do this year. Even though I don't drink, I use alcoholic beverages in cooking a great deal. I cook with wine, and I cook with cider, and I cook with beer quite a lot. Make tempura batters. I make some amazing sauces for my pork with cider as well. So it's definitely something I want to start becoming self-sufficient in. We're going to be hopefully we're going to be making wine from our own grapes this year, and we're going to be making lots of cider from our apples. But it's not something I've A, done before, or B, think that I'll be kind of ready to have ready in time for September if I was going to be drinking it. But there you go. Ward writes, I'm going to grow some chamomile to make tea. I'm going to try that. Yeah, we've got chamomile. We do grow that. So chamomile. So there's chamomile tea and there's mint tea, both of which are perfectly pleasant. They're just not my favorites. But I suppose this is just a case of me practicing what I preach, and I kind of say, all the time about eating seasonally, and to my family as well. I try to encourage them to eat some of the things that aren't their favorite things, because I think, here's the thing, it's a bit of a magic trick really. If there's foods you don't like, if you just keep trying them a little bit every now and again, eventually your palate will change and you will grow to, they might not become your favorite things, but they'll grow to become things that you're perfectly fine with on a plate. And I can't remember where I learned that, but it was a professional chef on some TV show years ago, and it really does work. And personally, when it comes to food, there's nothing I'm not really happy eating. But when it comes to drinks, I'm a little bit fussier, and I hadn't really acknowledged that until this week. So that's what it comes down to, I think. It's not a case of am I going to dehydrate and die because there's nothing to drink. It's not a case of that at all. It's just a case of I'm a little bit fussier and I'm going to have to get over myself, aren't I? That's what that comes down to. TM Garden, Escape and Explore. Hello back to you, and hi, Guido. No, you haven't missed a great deal. You did miss a mention of you, though. I think it was you that asked me last week how prepared I felt for September, and I kind of breezed through it saying, yeah, no, I feel fine. I feel very prepared, or as prepared as I can be. But this week I've kind of been focusing on beverages and drinks and just saying, I think that's the thing I'm going to struggle with more than most others. Hi, Hannah. Glad you could make it. And Jenny Nichols, right, I've just made a rhubarb cordial with low sugar, and it's very refreshing and keeps you regular. Wow. Well, I've got to harvest our last batch of rhubarb at some point this weekend, and my weekend's quite short again because I've got a foraging course tomorrow that I'm leading down in Devon. So I've got to harvest that rhubarb so I can make some more of that reduction, because I'm going to need that. I really am going to want that in September, quite a lot of it, and we're running a bit low. So that's definitely something I'm going to be doing at some point. Even if I don't get the reduction made this weekend, I need to get it harvested really, because I don't know when else I'm going to get the chance. Making the reduction super simple. It doesn't take much time. But tomorrow I'm leading a foraging walk, and it's down in Devon, and it starts at 9, which isn't a problem. Normally, it takes about an hour and a half to get there. But normally what I do, because it's for a big estate, it's for the Broomhill estate, and they basically hire me, and they sell all the tickets and everything else, but they hire me to come down and run the course. And normally what we've done every time up until now, is we do a 2-hour walk, we forage a load of stuff, we bring it back to the chef, then we do another 2-hour walk, and then we come back and he's prepared something for us to eat. But they want to move the food forward. So we're going to be eating at about 11. And what that means is that isn't going to work. So what I need to do, I need to get there, and I need to go out for about an hour and a half before the course starts to collect up all the stuff that we're then going to forage for, so that the chef can be preparing it so we eat on our first trip back to the hotel. And what that means, because it's such a long drive, is I'm actually going to drive down there tonight, and they're going to put me up in one of their rooms, and I'm going to get up and do that I'll probably only have to get up at 7 or something. I can have a little bit of a lie-in even. But yeah, that means that my Saturday ends a little bit earlier. Well, not that early. I'll probably leave here about 8 o'clock this evening, something like that, and then I'll get home around 2 o'clock tomorrow. So it's not all bad, but it does mean that's quite a big chunk of my weekend gone. And what amazing weather we're having. I'm trying to get a lot done in the garden this weekend. I was working till about 9 o'clock last night. We got loads done, and I'm trying to think what I did. It was like a never-ending list. I went out and took care of a lot of sort of animal care stuff, just taking care. We've got some really big water troughs that don't need filling every day, but every so often they need sort of cleaning out and taking care of. So I did all that, harvested some potatoes. What else? All, you know, seedlings, looking after those, doing little bit of sowing, and moving a load of stuff. I had a load of stuff just wasn't in the right place. So a load of like tidying and general garden maintenance stuff yesterday. And then I got in the house, and then there was like this never-ending list of stuff for me to put full stops at the end of everything. I had a load of milk that I hadn't processed, etc., etc. So I didn't end up getting in the shower till about 9 o'clock last night. And this weather, though, means that it's a joy. It's an absolute joy. It's bright sunshine and about 30 degrees. And as soon as I finished recording this, I've got my sourdough to carry on doing. But other than that, I'm going to be in the garden the rest of the day, going to be working on my vegetable garden. Hopefully, I'm going to get it all weeded, going to get some mulching done. I'm going to be harvesting some more potatoes, and then we're going to be putting in a load of seedlings. We've got some chard to go in. I'm trying to think what else. Got a load more lettuce to go in. We're going to put that in next to our sweet corn, so the sweet corn can shade it a little bit, because what's going to happen now the temperature's turned, is we're going to be fighting things running to seed. So, yeah, really excited to get out there. I hope you're enjoying this weather wherever you are, if you've got this beautiful weather like we are. Shannon says, I plan on paying you to come to Australia and do a foraging course for me, and also build some outhouses too one day. I would love that. Yeah, or you find your way to the UK. Either option works. And if any of you ever find yourself near the southwest UK, I'm near the Dorset border in Somerset, and you know, if you're either in the Dorset, Somerset, Wiltshire, Devon area, make sure you get in touch, and we'll go out foraging. So I've made a little tiny list. So you've probably seen my custard results. If you follow my channel, you'll already have seen those. I foraged some meadow sweet and made custard, and I'm so happy. I think that came across in the video. I was told it did by Shannon, but the results are amazing. I have a little bit of an addendum to make to the information in that video. After I uploaded it and watched it back, it kind of, it seemed like it might come across that it's a bit more vanilla-y than it is. It is a little bit vanilla-y, but it's more almondy, and that's sort of come to me over the last couple of days of eating it. It's more like an almondy flavor, but in terms of custard, as a custard, it works. I'm so happy. And so we've got some rhubarb in our freezer already, which we're using for rhubarb crumbles in September. And so the next thing on my list to have a play around with is making that crumble topping without sugar, and using using honey instead, but still trying to get that crispness. I've had a few suggestions sent my way from you guys already for that, but yeah, and I've got loads of videos already that I've made that are in the process of being edited and uploaded. So one of the ones that I wanted to talk about today, actually, is I took a lot more footage of the butchering of my last pig. Now, it's quite graphic, some of it, but, and there's not, you know, I haven't filmed the slaughter, and I haven't filmed much of the real start of the process, but once the animal was skinned, I've got some footage of basically the rest of the process. So I'm going to be uploading that, but what I'm not going to do, I'm probably not going to make that public. What I'll do is I'll probably make a public video saying, here's the link to the private video, and then you guys can all watch it if you want to, but I just didn't want that popping up in people's feeds who don't want to see it. I'm really mindful of that, really conscious of that, and I just want to be respectful of people's choices, and it's not everyone's choice, but it's my butchering has just come on leaps and bounds. If you've been following me for a little while, you might remember the first pig I ever butchered was less than a year ago, and it was what we're in now. So yeah, it was in the autumn last year. No, it wasn't even that. It was around Christmas time, wasn't it? I can't remember if it was. I think it was just after Christmas. So it's this year maybe. So that took me about 3 days. One pig took me 3 days. Basically, the first day was about 9 till 4, so a fairly full day, and I had help with me. I had 2 people helping me at the start, and they stayed till about 2, and that took all day, and that was to get the pig in the fridge in massive sections, in like 6 massive sections, where I've got that process down now to about 2 hours solo, and, you know, quite easily done as well. And that one of the things that always caused me stress and concern, particularly butchering in the summer, is the meat spoiling if, it's in this weather. So being able to go, I can get up early in the morning and I can go from slaughter to fridge within 2 hours. I don't have to worry about that. It's before all the flies are around and everything like that. So it's that side of it now is fantastic. And then the rest of the processing probably takes me about 3 hours. And I think that is that's basically breaking down all the cuts from the rib section, the loins, the chops, all of that. I can do all of that from the torso of the animal within about 2 hours, and then another hour for processing ham. So that doesn't include sausage meat. That's the only thing it doesn't include, or bacon curing. But it means that I can get a whole pig from slaughter to actually butchered in 4 hours, something like that. And then the only thing, and that includes curing hams, and the only thing left after that would be sausage making and bacon making. So I'm just so happy with that. I could easily now do a pig in a day, but that went from the first experience, that took me 3 days. It was one day, as I've just said, with the outside stuff getting in the fridge. Then it was another day just to break down all the joints. And then it was a third day for bacon, curing ham, sausage making, and kind of organizing those cuts properly and getting them in the freezer. Not quite 3 full days, but the effort involved and the amount it took out of me, I didn't get much else done those 3 days. I can say that much. But like I say, now, one day, fairly simple. Hawk Moon writes, cool, I loved the butchering stuff. Thank you so much. And Pesky Chicken says, I once tried to butcher 2 pigs in one day by myself. I will never attempt that again. Hashtag lesson learned. Yeah, I don't think I would do that. One, fairly simple. Will I grow and harvest my own meat again? 100%. Yeah, absolutely. So we raise goat here as well. Now, we keep goats for milk. That's what they're for. A byproduct of the milking process is kids. Now, last year we sold all the kids, but the year before that, we did keep 2 of them for meat. And one of them, I've still got almost a whole goat in the freezer because of lockdown. Basically, when I harvested them, we harvested 2 goats, and I didn't do any of the butchering at that point. They went away to be done at a proper, abattoir and butcher, a professional. And when they came back, I didn't have room in the freezer for both of them. So I put one of them in my nan's freezer. And my nan is about 94. I can't remember exactly, but I think she's 94. And then about a month after that, we had the first lockdown. And of course, she was isolating with my aunt who lives with her, who has emphysema. So really, you can't find 2 more high-risk people. So I didn't go and see them for over a year. And we've only just got access to that meat again. So I think it's perfectly fine it being in the freezer for a year. That doesn't concern me in the least. But yeah, absolutely I will. So like I say, that we've got the goats here, and having the goats produces the opportunity to raise meat if we choose to. And I think we probably will next year. It actually solves another problem. So as you'll know, we've got 2 girl goats at the moment and Sid. And Sid is separated because he can't run with the girls because he will get them pregnant when we don't want them to be pregnant and we can't manage the situation. But what I wish we'd done this year is I wish we'd kept one of the male kids as company for Sid. Now, they do see each other through the fence, so he's not completely alone, but I know, and I feel a bit guilty, but I know he'd be happier if he had some company. So next year, what we'll probably do is keep one of the wethers, a castrated male, and he can be like a companion animal for Sid, and then obviously be raised up and eventually be meat. Now, Sid is actually a half Boer. He's mostly Boer, which is a meat goat, and that's one of the reasons that we looked at him and wanted him, because it means that it gives us those choices for our kids, so they should be a reasonably big animal once they, meaty once they grow up. So that's definitely an option, and I think that's really on the cards with us not having the pigs. However, it has to be said that as it stands right now, we've got about 12 months worth of pork in the freezer, and we've still got 1 more pig to slaughter, which will be in a few weeks' time when the piglets have weaned. But, that's a massive pig out there. So, once that's done, we've got enough pork meat to see us right through to the end of 2022. So we're not in any desperate need to be harvesting any meat at the moment. We do obviously take the occasional cockbird. I've got 2 that are waiting for me to process them, and we probably end up, it's difficult to say, but I would say we probably get about 20 to 30 cockbirds a year that, that come through our just natural breeding and what have you. So not masses, but, one every other week, something like that. They don't come like that. They come mostly around the springtime to be harvestable in, well, probably September is actually about when they're at full size, most of them. So that's all to come. But yeah, no, in terms of having a dedicated meat animal here, yes, we will. Excuse me. Yes, we will. And I think we're going to get turkeys at some point when we're going, once the pigs are gone, we're going to take that opportunity. We're going to enjoy that opportunity to just take a breath and spend a few weeks with that little bit of workload off of our plates, and then just see where we go. But as it stands right now, as I sit and talk to you today, the plan is to introduce some turkeys up in the wood at some point. So yeah, definitely. And the process of butchering and, plucking and stuff a turkey is, much simpler than a pig. But I think in terms of effort to meat, I think the pig beats the poultry hands down. I really do. Yes, Sam, you missed the turkeys leaving. So okay, so let's fill you in. So I was gifted 2 turkeys for Father's Day, and we got them here, and one of them basically yeah, we did get a pair. They basically, one of them got attacked or had some kind of damage, and we don't know. We assume it had it before it came, and they were both basically poorly, unhappy, unhealthy birds, and we had to slaughter them. One of them was, like I say, it had this injury, and we weren't sure if there was some infection there or what have you. And I'd already slaughtered the male because so I feel quite strongly about the type of breeds of animals I keep here, and that's why we've never really had broiler hens. We've never had hens that are bred purely for meat, because they're unhealthy, unhappy animals. And, that's not part of the deal for me. The part of the deal for me is we'll have animals here and we'll give them an amazing, happy life. And then they'll give us the meat. What I don't want is animals that are just miserable, and they grow up miserable, unhealthy, unhappy, and then we slaughter them. That's not what I wanted. And that's why we've never had broiler hens here. Well, the turkeys that we got, it turns out they were really big-breasted whites, and they were, the male, we were good, the plan was to breed them. The male was never going to be able to breed. He could barely walk. He seemed okay when we got him home, but it was clear he couldn't really walk. He was never going to be able to breed the female, and they just weren't going to be happy animals. So the short version of the story is they were unhappy, unhealthy, and we slaughtered them fairly early. But we are planning to get turkeys here, but we're going to get a heritage breed. So, a much healthier animal that can get around and just exhibit all the natural behaviors that you want to see in animals. That brings us on to actually something I made a little list here of all the little things I wanted to mention, and I don't know why, but I forgot to put it down. But it brings me on to some more really sad news, and our little house pig didn't make it. We gave him every chance. We gave him every chance possible. So we were giving him medication to relieve his pain, and we were feeding him and giving him everything we could with the hopes that he could recover. And we gave him every chance. It was really down to him. And the damage that he'd suffered was too severe, and it started to actually deteriorate. So we kept him in the house for about 5 days, I think. And it got to the point, it was spinal damage, which was one of the things I say it was spinal damage. I now believe it was spinal damage, nerve damage, because when we first got him, it was one of the things that the vet said it could have been. And if it was, she said one of the likely prognosis was that it would spread up his body, and that's what it did. And the leg, he had one good leg right from the start. He had one good leg that he could kind of try and walk with and what have you. And that started to go, and then his neck went, and it went like he just really struggled to lift it up, even when he was drinking. So yeah, unfortunately, he didn't make it. But, you know, I've got a very clear conscience. We did all we could. We gave him every chance. So, you know, it's part of nature. And as I mentioned in that video, in the video that I did specifically about him, you know, it's part of nature and part of breeding animals and breeding in general. And, you know, I said at the time, you know, even when when a human goes into labor, we treat that as a minor medical emergency, don't we? And, you know, we call an ambulance or we rush to the hospital. And in animals, it's no different. It's not, you know, the mortality rate in animal births. I'm not sure. I wouldn't like to say how it compares to humans without medical attention. But, you know, it's certainly higher than zero. And she had 12 piglets. We lost 2 of them within the first couple of days or within the first day, and that's perfectly normal. And then this one, I think it would have made it. It had, you know, it was a perfectly healthy piglet, but it got some, a trauma. I suspect mum trod on her, and, you know, and that's what it is, and that's what happens, and it's part of raising animals. So, you know, we gave it every possible chance, but it got to the point it was living in this little box. It couldn't move. It couldn't even like roll over. It couldn't lift its head. It was literally, all it was doing was staring at this wall at the front of the box. And we decided that, you know, enough's enough. He's not going to get any better. And we, you know, dealt with him. So yeah, it's a real shame. Poorhouse Pig, you did all you could. I appreciate you sharing that side of the homesteading too. Thank you, Shannon. And Jenny Nichols writes, your videos and these chats have really made me think about where we get our meat from. And a few people agree. Thank you, Jenny. And that's really the highest compliment you can pay me. And it's a huge part of why I do what I do. And for me, you know, I've always had this thing. So when, even though we used to buy our meat in the supermarket, of course we did. And but even then, I would take my young children from the age of, well, as soon as they were old enough really to understand it and speak, I would take them up to the meat counter and I would say, right, so what animal does this come from? What animal does this come from? And, you know, what part of the animal is this from? And it's something that's always been a passion of mine to have and share that honesty about where our food comes from. And we don't need to be ashamed of it, but we should be aware of it, and we should use that awareness to make good decisions where we can. And every time I bring up this debate, there's this whole other side of me that comes in, because I also know that I'm incredibly fortunate to be able to do what I'm doing. And, you know, in the past, we didn't spend the money that it would have cost to get really ethically sourced meat. We would buy the cheapest meat we could from the supermarket because that was what our, you know, budget allowed. And there is very much a dichotomy there between wanting to be evangelical about raising awareness of where our food comes from and allowing people to make really good decisions based on their own ethics, not on mine, but based on their own ethics, just to make honest decisions and be honest with themselves. And then the other side of that is there's a financial cost that comes with that. There's a financial cost if we want to make really good choices about sustainability. You know, if we want to use things that are ethically sourced, that are fair trade, all these things have a cost implication, because that's why factory farming is what it is, because that's the cheapest way of producing something. And if you're not doing something the cheapest way of producing it, then obviously you're doing it the other way, which costs more money. You know, that's the nature of it. And that's just something I'm really passionate about encouraging people to just be aware of. And then what they do with that is up to them. But the awareness, I think, is important, because if you're aware of it, then you're able to temper your decisions in the directions that line up with your ethics, so that what you say and what you do and what you think can all be aligned, you know, and be honest with yourself about it. Let's have a look here. Hannah Starrett, agree with Shannon. There are a few channels that make it out to be all sunshine and rainbows, but that's not helpful at all. No, and again, you know, I mentioned this in yesterday's vlog, I think. I thought long and hard about putting that video up because as much as anything else, the baby animals are so darn cute, aren't they? They're amazing. And, you know, my family, just like anybody else, can get really, really attached to them. And what I didn't want to do is cause people a lot of pain by getting attached to this cute little piglet when, you know, I thought that possibly it was, you know, going to end how it did. But at the same time, I thought, well, no, this is what it's about. This is what we're doing. And yeah, so that's why I included all of that in my vlogs and brought you along with that journey, because I thought it was an important part. So there's a couple of messages I want to just get to. One from a few minutes ago. Shannon wrote, how large should I expect cabbages to grow at full size? I'm just trying to work out how high the net needs to be, if you don't mind me asking. Right, I'm going to quickly deal with that, and then we'll get back to where we were. So cabbage netting is bonkers. It needs to be massive, because your cabbage that you're going to harvest is like that, maybe, if you're lucky. But around it, you've got these leaves that are probably like that. So you're going to want it at least a couple of foot across and a couple of foot high, because otherwise all that's going to happen is your cabbage plants are going to grow out and they're going to touch it. And I'm assuming that you're netting it to protect it from butterflies and moths. I'm not sure which you get out there in Australia. But if you do, it's important that the leaves don't touch the net, because they'll lay their eggs straight through it if they do. So one of the things that surprised me was just how big that cabbage netting needed to be when I used it. I decided to go without it this year, and I'm regretting that. I am regretting that. I'm chalking that up as a mistake, because in the past, I've had my brassicas, they've got hammered by pests and then they've all come back. But I'm not sure that my broccoli and my cauliflower are going to. I think my cabbage will still, but the broccoli and cauliflower, I've got one cauliflower that's formed its head. It's done all it's doing. It's done all it's going to do. And it's like it's saying to me, Carl, you could have done a bit better here, and I can't be asked to try any harder. And I've got a little cauliflower about that big. So, yeah, and I don't think he's going to do any more. But there you go. Where are we? Shannon writes, your passion comes through every time you talk about these things, mate. Thank you. Escape, TM Garden, escape and explore. I agree. I'm a vegetarian, but husband and 2 daughters are meat eaters. I feel so much happier knowing they will eat meat from our healthy chickens. We're also in Sweden too, and have access to wild moose. Oh my God, you're so lucky. That's one thing that we don't really have access to here in the UK is hunting opportunities. I would love the opportunity to go hunting for things like deer, but getting the license for the correct type of gun isn't something I've been able to do yet. And also, you know, getting the landowner's permission isn't a simple task here. Alan Roderick, more good work, mate. I'm off to swelter at the allotment for a few hours. Yeah, you are. This weather's crazy, but enjoy it. Sam Tancock, I'm late. Sorry, the labeling in the UK is awful. It should be transparent where the meat comes from and how it is raised. I couldn't agree more. And when you go to the supermarket, you've got no idea really. When you look at the meat, it's just meat. And what I have found, if you go to a butcher's, you can ask, and there are some butchers that will literally be able to say, you know, this piece of meat came from an animal at this farm up the road or whatever. And the other thing to say is, as well, I don't want to tarnish all farmers with the same brush, you know, because when I say commercial agriculture, you know, there's a lot of commercial farming systems that are fantastic. And there are farmers out there that care just as much about their animals as I do. And, you know, you can find meat that's not incredibly expensive, that, you know, is raised really, really well. And particularly if you actually speak to the person who's raising it and purchase it, as I know one of you did. You mentioned last week, I can't remember who, sorry. But if you buy like half a pig or a whole pig direct from the animal, from the breeder, the person who's growing it, then you can get really in touch with where your meats come from. And I think, you know, knowing where all your food comes from is important, but someone's just knocked at the door, I think. That's our dogs. But yeah, I think knowing where all your food comes from is important. But when it comes to meat, it has a much bigger ethical implication on the welfare of the animal, doesn't it? What else? Enjoy the sun. I will. Donna Moran, I don't eat a lot of meat because the meat I eat is mostly home raised, but it's raised for more than meat, of course, the milk. But also meat animals provide fertilizer for the vegetables too. Yeah, I mean, even if I was a vegan, well, I don't know. Does it qualify as vegan if you're keeping animals for manure? I don't know. But even if I was vegetarian, we'd still keep animals here for all of the good things that they do, like you say. TM Garden Escape and Explore, you should come and stay here. We have holiday rentals. Oh, wow. Well, maybe. And Hannah's dogs have just gone running off to see where my dogs are. That's great. My dogs probably won't settle down now for a little bit. Hi, Jason. My brother-in-law Jason's here. Glad you could make it, mate. I hope you're doing all right, enjoying this sun. So that's, I think that's kind of wrapped up everything I wanted to say about that. I wanted to touch on one other thing about my September challenge, and it's an idea that I'm floating. I've had it in my head for a little while, and it's another challenge that I'll either do separately or I might tack it on for the last week of September. And that is what I want to do, and it's something I've wanted to do for a little while, is because through September we've mentioned what I'm going to be drinking, and we've spoken quite a lot about that, and we've mentioned water quite a lot, and obviously I'm using tap water, and that's great. But what I also want to do is I want to try and only use water that I can create myself as well. So there's a river that runs fairly locally. We're in the UK, so we get a lot of rain. And what I want to do is set up I want to make some homemade water filters and things like that, so I can go and collect water from the river, filter it, boil it, and use that. So I'm thinking for the last week of September, I might add that as an addition to the challenge, but I'm not going to make a decision on that until, the second or third week and see how I feel. Because one of the things that is really dawning on me is just the amount of effort involved, the amount of time, not effort, time, the amount of time it takes to be self-sufficient in all these things. Because it's all well and good growing your own vegetables and raising your own meat, but then when it comes to, when we're going a step further back from that, there's quite a lot of processing involved. So when we're not only making all of our own food, but we're only using raw ingredients, and we're just having to do so much processing and drying and fermenting and things to make these things. And the workload is, as I prepare for it, as I start to do things like forage things that I want to save, like meadow sweet, so I've got that, and making these homemade custards and stuff, it's the time involved is really becoming apparent to me. And that's the biggest saving, isn't it, from buying things in a shop, is the time that we save is incredible. The difference between going and buying some vanilla essence for a couple of pounds in a shop versus going out, harvesting loads of meadow sweet and then drying that so you can preserve it and use it, and then steeping the product rather than just adding a few drops of something. It's just a world apart, several hours difference in the same end product or a similar end product. Obviously there are advantages both ways. I'm not going to pretend that I don't prefer to have things that I've made myself, but the work involved is absolutely real. I've got a few more videos that I've recorded that are going out soon. I'm going to, easy now, settle down, come here. I'll see if I can get my dog to come and say hello. Come here. All right. So they won't stop barking now until I go and check the door. I'm sure it's just a delivery driver's put a parcel there. And I'm home alone, so I can't even go and check. Okay. Settle down. My wife will be cussing me when she sees this video because I don't normally give the dogs this much attention in the house. But yeah, I'm going to do, hopefully this afternoon, I'm going to film a vegetable garden tour for July, and that'll be coming out probably at the tail end of this week. So I've got a bit of a backlog. I've got the butchering videos coming. I've got the sourdough video coming that I'm halfway through filming. I've got another foraging video coming out, and yeah, they're all coming out this week. So hopefully I'm a bit ahead on the videos, so I'll be able to keep them coming once a day for you guys. Anyway, I think that's going to wrap me up, unless anyone's got any other questions or anything else they want to get in before I go. But I'm quite, what time is it now? It is 1:45. So I've got 45 minutes before I need to get back to my sourdough. So I think I'm going to make myself a decaf coffee, have that, and then maybe go and do my get my sourdough done, and then get out to the garden where I want to get everything up together. I've got so much to do. I'm going to be pruning the grapevines. I'm going to be weeding the vegetable bed. I'm going to be harvesting. I'm going to be sowing. I'm just, I want, in an ideal world, and this will never happen, in an ideal world, what I'll do is I'll come in this evening, ready to drive down to Devon, and feel that there's nothing more I could have done on the vegetable bed, and it's all there. Thank you, Hawk Moon. I will have a great weekend. I hope you do too. Good for you. Gonna get some moth plants for your garden. And Shannon said maybe I should try some water instead of the coffee. Yeah, maybe I should, but I'm not going to. TM Garden Escape and Explore. Oh, so cute. To the dog, yeah. The dog is pretty cute normally. That's the better behaved one. The other one is slightly less obedient, but that's going to wrap us all up. Before we go, please make sure you press that like button, guys. It does make a big difference to my channel. And if you're not already, make sure you are subscribed. And awesome. You're working in your garden today. Awesome, Jace. And yeah, all of you have a fantastic weekend. If you're in the UK, enjoy this weather. We never know how long it's going to last or how often we're going to get it. So go out in your gardens and make the most of it. And don't forget to take some time to just enjoy yourselves. Speak to you soon. Thanks everyone for coming along. And yeah, I'll see you really soon.